Superior attack!
Welcome back to Superior Tech. This is Respecugnize, and we're going to take an advanced look at Moira. So, one of the things I love about Moira, and the reason why she's in the middle, or a high part of the middle of the difficulty range and learning curve, is because Moira forces you to go back and forth between healing and DPS. And I don't mean that just because that's the way to be a good player with her, but I mean because the way they set up the mechanics of the character, you literally must go back and forth between healing and DPS to make her very effective. So looking at our primary, which is our heal, you notice that it drains it, and we looked at the numbers in the last video, and we'll go over those shortly because it is kind of important for this. So the healing is going to drain out your gauge there on the right, and it's going to take about 45 seconds if we just sit here watching that gauge. In that time, your teammates are dying and you're probably dead also. So if you remember the numbers from the last one, I said it will take between 9 and 45 seconds to recharge, and that is because draining with the decay beam is going to fill that gauge at the same rate that draining it does, so it's an even replenishment. So we get the same speed of replenishment right there. Okay, so that is important, and that's what I mean by you're going to have to go back and forth between left click and right click to effectively keep that gauge replenished after you're getting some of the health back into your team and doing your job, hopefully. So the next part of the tech to kind of look at is E on those orbs. Once again, left click is for heal, right click is for damage. Very left brain, right brain character. The ball is going to move forward in a straight line. It is not affected by gravity at all. So when we fire this ball long distances, it's going to travel in a laser straight line, and it's going to interact with the next hard surface it hits, or the next hero if we're healing, or the next enemy hero that it runs into if we're damaging. So you have to be pretty decent at angles in time of travel if you're going to use these balls effectively. So if you're playing normally and you kind of got your reticle mid, if I fire, we'll do the heal ball because it's yellow, it's a little easier to fire. If we're running around and we don't do any adjustments and we're running and we fire that, see that it's up here now. And if we have some allies who are down here, they may not necessarily be in that area effect, and that's a medium drop. On any of the stages that have larger drops, then you're going to effectively move your character. Those characters are going to move out of the effective AoE of the heal, and because of that, you have to be very careful of how you fire it. So it'd be more effective to fire it down here, because see, it continued in a straight line and it was in this area to affect more heroes. And the same thing with damage. Now, one of the real good ways to use this is for seeking. So let's say we came out of spawn down here, we're running behind our team, and we wind up seeing a long run like this, and there's some doors. If we fire this damage ball and follow it, okay, you're going to notice two things, or you should notice two things. The first thing is that there's an audible tick in an eighth note pattern. That's that tick, 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 tick. Okay, as soon as that ball gets within an area of effect of an enemy hero, it is going to start draining the ball, and there's a visible cue for that. You can see that stream that comes out of the ball. That's the way you can tell if you can see the ball, how much longer. It's kind of an approximation of where in that 200 maximum damage that ball is. And so you know when it's about to run out. The eighth note pattern tick lets you know the second the ball gets within an AoE of an enemy. And so if we fire that down a blind hallway or long distance, it will immediately let us know where the enemy players are. Besides that, if we get it here, that's not a very good example. Let's try again. Okay. There's the audible change in that eighth note pattern the second that ball gets into an area of effect for another hero. So we heard that stutter each time that ball got to another hero and they added in. So we got a tick, 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 tick. But when a second, third, and then a fourth hero got involved, there was a tick, 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 and those extra ticks are going to come in. The other part is you can look on the reticle there, and we can see that there are triangles that pop up every time there's a tick to let us know there's damage. And the reverse happens if it is our allied heroes and we throw the heal ball. So most people, when they're playing Moira, they love a room like this or a bunch of enemies piled up in the room because it can get some tick damage on it. And because of that, most people are going to come in to a place like this and throw the ball. And, you know, we cause some damage there. But it's a physics game with that's why it's called the physics engine. All of that is important. If you were alive and watched sitcom television during the late 80s, early 90s, and I don't know because I don't watch it, maybe they still do it, but kids always were worried about this math problem where a train left one station traveling west. Let's say the train leaves the station traveling west at 65 miles per hour. There's another train that leaves the city out to the west of that traveling east, the opposite direction, at another speed like 55 miles per hour. At what city and how long, as far as chronology, does it take those two trains to die in a fiery Amtrak oh, did I say Amtrak? I mean Scramtrack. In a fiery Scramtrack crash and everyone die. So the same thing with these balls. Whenever you throw one, remember the enemy team, they're not robots. They're going to move. So with a character like a tank or something like that, they're pretty much, I guarantee you're gonna ignore that ball, especially if there's a melee or a fur ball or a bunch of your teammates are there in their face. They're just gonna take that little damage and not worry about it. The healers will heal them past it or whatever. If you fire that ball distance and it gets to where there's a bunch of enemies, but a bunch of your enemies, but your team is not there, pretty much just like these robots, they're gonna move away from it. You know, just in the same scenario, you may wind up getting one or something like that, but for the most part, they're just gonna move out of the distance. And that's because when I throw this ball, just like that train scenario, if this enemy is moving towards me, and I throw the ball is moving in this direction. They were moving in this direction, then the opposite of the trains. The ball and the enemy are moving in opposite directions. So if they stood still, that ball would move away from them and they would get out of the area of effect. But the time that they are in the area of effect is effectively halved because they're going to run away. So we throw the ball this way, the ball is traveling, they're going to run this way or simply sidestep out of the building. And so that area of effect is going to be halved in time. Whereas if you throw the ball vertically, once you get into a room, and we'll give it a second for these guys to kind of get back home. If we threw that ball vertically, it's going to sit in that area. And as you notice, even with that bot moving away, the bot was affected by that ball twice as long as when we threw it horizontally and the ball was leaving them and they were leaving the ball. The same works with the heel. Instead of throwing the heel horizontally, if you're in an area that's closed in, a hallway or a room, instead of firing that ball horizontally where it's effectively moving away from your allied heroes, you can throw that ball vertically, and since they're in that area and they're fighting, especially with tanks like Diva, who may not necessarily want to fire on the move, very good with things like Roadhog, because if he's going to be in melee with someone or he's going to hook to bring them to him, Roadhog, not a very mobile tank, very slow character. So that's an alternate way to look at that ball and use it. The last part of it, we're going to look at Moira's fade, which is one of the main reasons I love this crazy redheaded woman. So if you remember the Doomfist video, and you should, because you should basically be watching every video that I take my time to make, because I'm here to make these videos for you and make you not suck. So you should really be watching those. Because of that, I'm not going to go over all the math and tech for how jump canceling works. I'm just joking, guys. We're going to go over it. So the fade is a good use of the physics engine here. Quickly, we are a physical object in a physical world inside this game, with it doing calculations all the time, tracking our direction, our speed. In that, we become a vector because we have direction and magnitude, because we have mass and velocity. So we also have friction and we have gravity in the game. Gravity with the jump, how long in the arc, which gives us trajectory, and also friction because when we stop moving, our character doesn't continue to slide in the direction we did. So we can leave friction behind by jumping, and because there is momentum and we have mass, it does trajectory during the jump. If we mix that all together, we get this cool thing during our cancellation, our 2-in-1, our move cancellation, depending on if you're a fighting game person or not, move canceling, 2-in-1s, things like that. So we're going to simply jump cancel the fade, meaning at the termination of the fade, we're just going to hit jump. We're going to leave the gravity engine behind, and because we are moving faster now, we're going to change our distances. So if we look at the normal fade, the 0.8 seconds, we should get around 12 meters. And there we are. But if we jump cancel that fade, and we'll start at the same point, we are now 20 meters away. So we have doubled that. That's important because really good players, a couple of weeks ago, we saw Soon in a match. Basically, he knew where a tracer was going to enter blink. Because if you watch the pros, they're typically very conservative with the blink. They typically try to get a 1 blink in, conserving those other 2 blinks to move if they get into trouble. And also because the recharge time, 1 blink recharges faster than 3 blinks. Right. So basically he watched an enemy tracer blink. He knew roundabout where she was going to come out. He had that reticle waiting, and boom, execute. So if you fade, then you're going to either stop the fade and get your 12 meters, or you can jump cancel your fade and get your 20 meters, which makes the enemy snipers or enemy good characters that aren't quite dedicated snipers, a Hanzo, a McCree, some of those hit scan characters, it will make them, it'll only give them half a chance. Either you're going to come out here or you're going to come out there. And that's important with Moira, because if we notice when we fade, there's that particle and smoke effect, which effectively lets the other team know when the fade is over. So if you come out of it here and they're looking at it, then of course that smoke's there and they know that's where the fade's going to end. And you get your headshot because they know about how far. And if you change up with your fade jump cancels just like that, I went a little further, go here and jump cancel and hold back, I fall short of the 20. So you can kind of keep them guessing as far as that. Another part of it is, let's do a quick, and you guys know I'm super scientific with my measurements in the game. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi. 6 Mississippi to get around that corner. Whereas if we jump cancel and we are very crafty about where our feet are, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. And you see we were already on the edge by 2 Mississippi. So we've gotten somewhere between a third less or half the time being exposed to getting the back of our cabeza hit with a round from our enemy team. And so that is the really cool stuff about Moira and her tech. It's really about going back and forth between healing and DPS, which, you know, puts you kind of, if you're a little more aggressive but you still want to heal, you don't want to play a Mercy where you have to get off heals completely with your scroll wheel to get to your pistol and hope that you get some headshots and some kills and then go back to healing before your allies die and question why you are trying to DPS on a healing character at all. Moira effectively lets you support your team. So a couple of things about that going back and forth. Once again, and I cannot repeat this enough, you heal. You have the ability to heal. Use it. Do not get into just DPSing all the time and letting your allies die. Another thing is that beam, it's got some distance on it. You do not have to be up on top of the tanks or your frontline DPS characters to be effective with her. Now, the damage range on your decay is 20 meters. The range on your healing is 30 meters. And so you see I'm way back here. That's the line. So you do not have to be on top of anyone with this character. And it's one of the ways where I see a lot of players that at the low levels, how they get killed with Moira and think that she's weak or not a good character is because they're too close to the action. Being able to drain enemies from 20 meters away is pretty good, especially since it's a beam that automatically tracks. I cannot tell you how many kills I get on tanks also because of the way that beam works. Now, if you've ever taken damage in the game, you'll notice that there's a little trapezoid that pops up from your reticle. What you may not notice is that the size of those trapezoids and also the distance that they are from the reticle is all important. If you get shot with a character like Tracer or Sombra, where each one of those projectiles does not do a lot of damage and they come very fast, you'll notice that those trapezoids are very skinny. And because they typically attack you close, they're going to be very close to that reticle. And of course, if you played any shooters, you know that the direction that the trapezoid is angled into your reticle is the direction where you're getting your shot from. But if you get shot with a character like Farah, if a Farah shoots you with those big rockets that do a lot of damage, that trapezoid is going to be significantly larger. So what a lot of tanks don't see is the decay signature is very different than most of the attacks in the game. And because a tank is usually getting very involved in keeping a shield up, you know, if it's a brigade, and that's how I'm going to say it, I don't care. We in our team we say it differently every time. Bridget, brigade. You know, or a Reinhardt, they're going to be very careful to keep that shield pointed towards whatever enemies you have. And so with those more dangerous DPS characters in front of a tank, they tend to keep that shield in that direction, and they're very adamant about keeping the shield up and moving forward. They don't typically see that damage signature from Moira, which is weird because you would think if you have a shield up, you shouldn't be taking any damage at all. But especially in non-ranked and low-tier characters, the guys starting up, if they're tanking, they do not see that signature. In that you can be very far away, 20 meters, and start damaging an enemy and get those tank kills. I do it all the time in games, especially since if you notice on Decay, there is no ammo at all. You can run around spamming Decay constantly, and as soon as you get within that 20 meters, she's going to lock on as long as you're somewhere close and you're getting heals. And that's very important because Moira needs to stay very mobile at 200 health. So you see I'm draining here and jumping around. As long as I keep that relatively close, I'm still getting damage, and I'm not going to say I'm tanking their damage, but you're tanking a little bit of their damage and not dying as fast as, let's say, if you were a Tracer trying to get in someone's face. So that is Moira's tech. We'll take one more look at Fade because the most high part of the learning curve is also using the collision engine in the game, in that all of these boxes and ramps are physical objects and you interact with them. So if I walk over here, I hit this box because it's physically there. I can't walk through it, I don't bump around it. If you take that jump cancel and you interact with that physical object, it's the same as when we were little kids and we were running around. You see something that's a little higher, you jump on it, run to the edge, and you jump off because it gets you higher. And because you're higher up in the air, when you jump, you get to move forward farther, and you're just using that. So the same thing, just be a little kid in the game, and remember these are physical objects. So if I time this correctly, I should be able to, I did that wrong, I jump canceled too early. If we just use the collision on the corner there, we should be, take a breather. If we use the collision engine and we just get on that corner there, we should be able to do that. And with that jump cancel, we were able to bounce off the edge of the box and get over the edge. And we'll test it again by going here. And notice with the jump cancel, I did not travel over here. I did the normal thing, which is our 20 meter jump cancel, and wound up just here. So you can use those physical objects, the same with Doomfist, and he works a little differently, on surfaces like, I don't see any, but the roofs on the tops of things in most of these stages, they're slanted so that you can't get Pharah or a Widowmaker with grapple to be able to sit on areas where they would just be invulnerable. You would never be able to get a shot into them, and they could basically just rain death on the team. Doomfist, a little more than Moira, is able to hit those, and basically there's a ramping effect where you go very high up, the same as we saw her bounce off with that death and wind up on the other side of that rail. So that is Moira tech. Play around with that Fade. Remember, you cannot go toe to toe, and so it's very important to know the timing on that Fade at all times. You do not have to throw your orbs horizontally. You can bounce them vertically, and that's about it. So practice that Fade. Always be looking at it. Practice your jump cancels so you're able to get out of engagements where you're going to die. And please, once again, remember, you're not a damage character. If you were supposed to be just running around damaging, you would be on the left side of the screen with the other attackers. You are a support character, so you are there to give auxiliary DPS and also give auxiliary healing. So that's it. Always have fun. If I miss anything, let me know. PM, text, give me a call. That's why you guys have followed. That's why you're subbing. I'm here to make these videos to help you get better. So remember, I am not the best player in the game. I'm just trying to get there.
Respecugnize game when I get on the move. Respecugnize game on Twitch and YouTube. Respecugnize.